Coming to you from Strings and Things Studio in Ventura, California, I'm Kaity.
I'm Ann.
And I'm Karin.
And this is the Strings Unraveled Book Club. Okay, good morning, everybody. Happy May. This month, my book was our choice for this month, and I picked The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And before we get into our synopsis and our discussion today, do we want to go through what are we working on? What's everybody, what are you making?
I see twinsy projects.
I am working on my second sample of the Faraway Jumper, which is a class I'm teaching in August. So the first one I made was smaller size because that's the yardage that I had, and this one is me-sized. And I have separated for my sleeves, and I'm chugging along on my body.
Isn't that such a nice relief?
Yes.
Right?
It goes very quick.
Comparably, anyway.
Yeah, true. And Karin?
I am also making a faraway jumper from Stash. I got all the way down to just before the ribbing, before I had to order something.
Oh, yeah?
Wow.
What I did to extend I didn't have enough for the main color. So, and also I really like the color work. So I just repeated the color work pattern all the way down the body.
Mm-hmm.
With just a little wider gap of the main color in between.
Nice.
And it gave me a chance to extend it, but then I realized, well, I still have sleeves. I
Yeah.
still have ribbing.
Still not enough yarn.
And my row gauge might be a little smaller. It was like, this is going to be a little short. But it's not short. It's fine.
Uh-huh.
But I did definitely need the yarn. And it came, I timed it just perfectly. I only had one day where I couldn't work on it before the yarn came.
Yeah.
So
Well, that doesn't sound like perfect. That sounds like one day off. But
well, I had other things, but
oh, I'm sure. I
I
understand.
Considering I started 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I started the week before we left on our vacation, and I'm already at the ribbing.
Nice.
It's
delightful, and it's not like it's on a ginormous hook either. It's just a very comfortable, repetitive.
Nice.
Except for the ribbing. Now I'm at the ribbing. It's tedious.
The ribbing goes fast too.
You know,
yeah,
Karin,
it does.
I got it done in one sitting
You're
on my
not
first one.
teaching this class, so one could pick up and knit the ribbing.
You could do whatever you wanted.
Well,
that's true.
I did change the ribbing.
Fair enough.
I'm doing the double slip stitch ribbing instead of
Oh,
the
that
half,
does take longer.
instead of the half double crochet. It's the same motion, and
It's
it
just- it's
uses
like
the
a-
same stitches.
Yeah, but doesn't it have like one extra little pass?
No, not at all. It's instead of so I do a yarn over before I go into the stitch, and then I do the back loop. I'm pulling up a loop, and I'm going to keep on pulling it.
Yeah.
So it has one less portion than the half double.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I think it's denser, so you have to do more of it. But I guess for this, it doesn't really make a difference.
In this case, because I'm using the same, I'm using the same stitches. It pulls in a little bit more, but I like the look of it.
Nice. What are you making, Ann?
I am working on the second of the June hats for the Year of Hats. It's a really fun slip stitch and stripe pattern. But I have unlocked something so dumb and simple. It's mainly a purl pattern.
Yeah.
But if you change one thing, you can make it a knit pattern.
Oh, there you go. Just turn it inside out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saving that for class.
Oh,
but
sorry.
yeah.
Spoilers.
But that's cool.
Cool.
I'll show you what you change when you turn it inside out.
I'll
in
edit
class.
that out. I'll edit that out.
That's cool. You leave it in. Because you do have to think it out a little bit.
Yeah.
And
cool.
Yeah, it's a black and white hat pattern, and you can make two out of what you need. So one has white as the dominant color, and one has black as the dominant color. And the dumbest thing of all I like about this hat is they show the pom-pom made of like a black and white and a mix of random other yarns.
Oh, that's fun. Cool.
So I should have some fun making the pom-pom for this one.
Nice. All right. Well, I have a little synopsis here of our book for today. I'll go through it and then we could do our initial reactions before we get into our questions, I guess. So this is from supersummary.com. Yeah.
It's like a good website.
It seemed like the right place to go. Okay. So, in 1714, in the French village of Vion-sur-Sarthe, 23-year-old Addie LaRue is to be married to a widower, that's a hard word to say, widower
Yes.
of 3 children. Refusing to resign herself to a life of rural domesticity, Addie flees to the forest and prays to entities she calls the old gods. As the sun dips below the horizon, a dark-haired, green-eyed stranger appears to grant her wish. Eternal life for as long as she wants it. On the day Addie becomes too tired or bored of existence to go on, she will surrender her soul to the stranger. After the stranger grants her request, Addie realizes there's a major caveat to her everlasting existence. Nobody remembers her. Even worse, she can neither forge new relationships nor rekindle old ones, because whenever she is separated from an individual for even a second, that person forgets her. Anytime Addie tries to write, draw, or otherwise leave her mark, the words and pictures disappear. Finally, although Addie cannot die, she still feels pain associated with hunger, cold, and injury. The stranger, whom Addie later names Luke, expects her to surrender within a year and abandon the extraordinary hardship of her new life. For the first 12 months, she spends most nights on the streets of Paris, subsiding on stolen food and eking out meager wages as a sex worker. During her first winter since the transformation, she effectively freezes to death, only to wake up hours later in a cart weighed down by dead bodies. Addie, however, refuses to yield, and over time she learns to navigate the world without succumbing entirely to loneliness and the pain of starvation. The hardest part of Addie's existence is her inability to forge lasting human connections. The mornings after sex, when her paramours wake up and fail to recognize her, are the worst. She learns to cope by serving as a muse, and over the years she leaves her mark on the works of numerous famous artists and musicians. Meanwhile, Luke appears to Addie nearly every year on the anniversary of her curse. Each time he asks her to yield, and each time she refuses. As the decades and centuries pass, Addie comes to view Luke with something like affection, given that he is only entity who remembers her. In 1952, the two begin a sexual relationship that lasts 3 decades until Addie breaks it off, convinced that the sex was merely a stratagem employed by Luke to convince her to surrender her soul. The rest of the narrative takes place in New York City in 2014. One day, a young bookseller named Henry remembers Addie after she steals a book from his shop. It's the first and only time any human remembers her in 3 centuries. Addie and Henry enjoy an idyllic relationship for a few weeks, until she discovers the reason Henry remembered her. He, too, made a deal with Luke. Almost a year ago, Henry's then-girlfriend rejected his marriage proposal. In the throes of suicidal despair, he made a deal with Luke to be loved by everyone who meets him for a year. After the year ends, he will relinquish his life and soul to Luke. By the time Addie learns this, Henry only has 36 days left. On what should be the last night of Henry's life, Addie tells him that she made a new deal with Luke. She will be Luke's exclusive romantic partner for as long as he will have her. In exchange, Henry will be permitted to live out his natural life. Addie and Henry never see each other again. Devastated, Henry copes by publishing Addie's life story as a book under the title The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Addie, meanwhile, secretly vows to drive Luke mad to the point he no longer wants to be with her, even if it takes her centuries.
Challenge accepted.
So, what did we think?
Looks like the devil made a bad bargain.
Yeah. I adore this book. Love that you chose it.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was going to be about, and I was hooked immediately and continuously, and every part of it was so engrossing.
Oh, good. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it too. I think that this author did an amazing job. There are a couple things that I wish had happened that we didn't get out of it, that when I read the back cover of the book, I was like, oh, I hope that we see, whatever. But we can get into that. But yeah, I also really loved it. I'm glad I picked it. It was a good choice, I think. So, and
I would read this again, because I feel like there's probably
Me
something.
too.
There's parts that I probably didn't all pick up on. I definitely want to pick it up again.
Good. Okay. So the book club questions I have for us today is from a website called Libromaniacs. And I really like their questions because they all include, most of them include a little quote to inspire us to go along with it. So our first question says, I am stronger than your god and older than your devil. I am the darkness between stars and the roots beneath the earth. I am promise and potential, and when it comes to playing games, I divine the rules, I set the pieces, and I choose when to play. What do you make of Luke? Is he a demon, a god, a monster, or something else?
Ooh.
Like, what is he?
What is he?
He's
'Cause we
supposed,
don't
to,
really
he's supposed to be Lucifer. I mean, that's her nickname for him.
That's her understanding, yeah, because she can still only process him through her 17th century Catholicism.
That's true.
Yeah, he never says what he is. He's always like, you think I'm the devil? Or do you think I'm a god? Or like, he's always like sending it back to her. It's like, well, like, what do you think I am? Or whatever, she calls him the darkness. She names him Luke, like you said, after Lucifer. But it's not entirely clear what he is or where he came from or how he came to be. You know what I mean? He's seemingly eternal, right? He makes deals with... we don't know how many people, but I would say hundreds of people.
He does say he wants their soul.
Yeah.
And there aren't very many entities that we think of that require a soul.
Yeah, but he's older than
The concept of it.
right. He's an ancient
he's still
being.
presenting himself in frames she can understand.
Right.
His appearance is her invention.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's still going to explain himself in a way that she can understand.
Yeah.
She has a benefit over her contemporaries because she's had Estelle's influence.
Mm-hmm.
The resounding chorus of "Don't pray that the gods who answer after it's dark." Like,
yeah, that's
a haunting refrain.
Yes, probably very good advice.
Right? Yes,
I can see.
I think of it often.
that part where her interaction happens with him initially. The whole setup of that reminds me of like a movie. I could see it in my head. She's running through the woods. She's praying desperately, not looking behind her. It reminds me. Did you guys ever see that movie, American Werewolf in London?
Yeah.
Okay, where they're talking and you can see they're veering off the road and they're breaking all the rules that they're not supposed to be doing. And as a person in the audience, I want to yell, "Look out behind you! Get back on the road! Don't go in the fog!" And I wanted to yell to her, "Look behind! The sun's going down. Be quiet."
Do you think she did it a little bit knowingly? I think she touches on that in her own reflection
Yeah.
at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would she have stopped praying had she looked at the time?
Nope. She talks a lot about how she prayed to the gods that answer during the day and never got anything from any of them. So,
and Luke,
she was pretty desperate.
Yeah, Luke mocks her for even trying that later.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's sort of like the DARE program. It's like, don't do these drugs. You might have too much fun.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Ooh, don't pray to the gods that answer after dark because, they might answer.
It's like, well, nobody else answered, so I guess I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah, there's one more option.
Well, that kind of leads us into our second question. What do you think of Addie's choices? If you were in her situation, would you have done the same? Why or why not? Like, so let's talk about why she makes this deal. She wants to live a bigger life than she is able to do in her small town in France in the 1700s. Like, she doesn't have any options, really. She can't go out and make a life on her own in the status that she has. She's sort of stuck in doing what her parents have decided basically is going to be her life, which is to marry this widowed man to raise his children in a way that she doesn't, like, she never envisioned that for herself. She's afraid she's never going to get the chance to see or do anything, right? Mm-hmm. So
she's still like you can't know this if the question is, would you act as Addie acted? You can't know, like, if you had hindsight. No.
Of course, she probably would have done the same thing.
Without that hindsight, maybe. But she's bound to the same life she didn't want.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like she only had two choices. Give up any chance of your own autonomy or have any, and get married, follow through the wedding, or have a chance of being able to have self-determination. Even if it's going to cost you, and even if it's bad, I would still do self-determination. I would still want a hope of controlling my own life versus guaranteed no hope.
Right, there's a known... She does know what one option leads her to, for sure.
Because if she chose neither of those options and just ran away on her own, I don't think she would make it very far. She does, after the fact, she walks to Paris. She carves out as much of a life as she can for herself, but she also cannot die.
Mm-hmm.
And would have many times if that had been possible. So I don't think that would have been a viable option for very long. It's not like that she could have been like, no, I want to go live on my own, and runs off and does it because it would have been impossible, right?
Well, I was thinking she had kind of the blanket of anonymity where that forgettableness kind of helped her, but at the same time, it hindered her. But like if people could remember her, they would always remember a lone woman walking alone. Again, that's not what women were allowed to, not reputable women were allowed to do. So she kind of was helped along the way because of her anonymity.
Yeah.
Right. She's a very clever and smart protagonist. Like, she is met with so much adversity, but she learns how to play what she's dealt to her advantage all the way through, right?
Yeah.
Even though it has, like, everything has consequences for her. Like, I identify with her in that, like, wanderlust and the, you know, romanticizing her tall, dark stranger to come and be her match. But, like, if you had any social anxiety, you would have given up. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Or you would overcome all of your social anxiety.
Yeah. That leads us a little bit into our next question. It says, being so quickly forgotten makes Addie almost invisible. She's able to get away with a lot of things like stealing, sneaking into places, using people's homes. What kind of mischief would you get into if you had that ability?
Ooh.
I like
well,
that.
There's a lot of empty homes in Malibu.
True. There's a lot of empty homes in a lot of really cool places.
Yeah.
This sort of leads me into one of the things I'm disappointed by this book, is that she mentions a lot of the places she has been and things that she has seen and traveled and done, but we don't really get to experience anything other than Paris and New York, right? She says that she has been to, you know, lots of countries and she's seen a lot of things, but like I would have liked to see some of those experiences. Or like one of the reviews I read about this book said that you're more being told what happens than shown what happens, so you don't get to like experience, like we don't hear a whole lot about how she is feeling about, you know, her experience. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like if we had gone to those places and seen more things, like she saw like a, what was it, a tiger, a lion, that was cool, but she went to, you know, a lot of cool places that I would have liked to see her perspective on.
Right, like this does not Bechdel test pass.
No. Yeah.
But I think that's, I will advocate for the idea that that's sort of the point, is that she's stuck in this eternal cage that's defined by what Luke has made the bars of her deal.
Yeah.
And so
I thought she's still kind of in prison. It's a prison of her own making, but she is still very, very limited. It also shows our need to be seen, you know, and without being seen, that I don't know how to. Yeah. It's. I felt like she kind of made this prison for herself. She didn't want to be imprisoned by a life she didn't choose, but like you said before, she kind of is.
But she also didn't get to choose the parameters of her deal. She didn't know that was part of it. So I don't think that these were, that you could call it a prison of her own making, because she didn't decide that for herself.
In desperation, she didn't argue the terms.
Well, she didn't know she had to.
Because just like we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, Luke is a djinn then. But he's none of the choices that we were given in the first question. He's a genie, a wish granter. And if you look at those in mythology, this is the kind of wishes they grant.
Yeah. So the next one says, Quote, all she knows is that she is tired and he is the place she wants to rest, and that somehow she was happy, but it is not love. Addie and Luke's relationship is complicated and passionate. Do you think that it is love, or was it love at some point, or anything else? No.
It's an abusive relationship.
Very much
it's
so.
Like, this is beautiful, poetic illustration of the patterns of an abusive relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, she lets herself find comfort with him for a long time. It was like 30 years that between 1950 whatever and New Orleans that she looked forward to seeing him and found comfort in their time together. But it was all a manipulation by Luke the whole time. He didn't need her or want her in any way that she felt like he did. And I do think it's valid that she found some comfort in that for a while.
Of course.
But yeah, no, it's not love.
So I kind of thought that he did love. I kind of felt that he did love her, but in a very dependent, unhealthy way.
He does say, like, it's about need. Like, I need.
Yeah.
But how does an entity have needs, and yet?
That's why
because I think she's the challenge. She's the one that keeps getting away, and the more she defies him, the more he wants her.
He's so indefinable.
Yeah, but it's not love. He doesn't need her, love her. He's using that as a tool to convince her to give herself over to him. It's all a manipulation, right?
Yep. It's obsession.
I don't even know if that's true. It's that he can live forever. He could play this game for as long as he needs to, but yeah. There are days when she mourns the prospect of another year, another decade, another century. There are nights when she cannot sleep, moments when she lies awake and dreams of dying. But when she wakes, she sees the pink and orange dawn against the clouds, hears the lament of the lone fiddle, the music and the melody, and remembers there is such beauty in the world, and she does not want to miss any of it. Addie never seems to tire of exploring the world's art, music, and beauty. Do you think that would be enough to sustain you through a life all alone?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, have you guys ever had that moment of sheer, like, joy? Like, on a beautiful day where you're doing something beautiful with people you love, or just you're in some beautiful situation, and the joy just, like, pierces your being.
It would have to be that's the only way that she could last as long as she did, is she had to find the beauty in the world, right? And there's a lot of it.
And I think she's the rare spirit that can. That's why he's always so surprised that over 300 years goes by and she's not done living this life. Imagine, maybe because she doesn't get old. She's not feeling the effects of age. She has this eternal youth. And so she's not in a body that is... I think if we were in a body that didn't feel the effects of age...
If I could be in my 23-year-old body again...
You'd be unstoppable.
Forget about it. Because I would know that was a hot body.
Yeah.
And if it just stayed that way for eternity... Yes.
Because mentally she's not staying in that place, but she's not really aging either, but she... Yeah, I think...
You don't think she's mentally aging?
I think very, very, very slowly. I don't think she's... I think she's gaining... Maturity. And she's wising up. She remembers what she's doing. She learns from what... she's very adaptable. I feel like... but it's not like... as she's not losing faculties as some people do.
I see.
She obviously her mindset can and does change, because she does talk about how she has been mad before and is, so she went crazy.
I love that she got bored with being crazy, though.
Yeah, and she's like, okay, I'm going to go back to not being crazy anymore, which would be nice if you could do that.
Because there is a mental health aspect to this telling of, permanent solutions for temporary problems, that even Addie demonstrates that her level of madness, which is pretty justified, not that you have to justify your mental state, was temporary.
Yeah, it's true.
She got through it.
I really liked the way that this book was framed, where each part was like represented and started by a work of art.
Love it.
And her life as a muse, and all of the artists and musicians and philosophers and people that she has met and touched, and it was really fascinating to hear another person that she had seen, or on the flip side, to think of how many people you can come up with that had made a deal with Luke. You're like, that's probably why they were the way that they were.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that in terms of like, you know, that, what is it, the 27 Club? Like the musicians
who die at 27.
Right. Yeah. That it's like, well, your time is up. You get to be 27 and then you're done. Jimi Hendrix or Janis Joplin or whoever, you know.
All victims of Luke.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to think that is how that works. Okay. And then he whispers 3 words into her hair. I love you, he says. And Addie wonders if this is love, this gentle thing, if it is meant to be soft, this kind, the difference between heat and warmth, passion and contentment. I love you too, she says. She wants it to be true. Do you think that Addie loves Henry, or does she love that he can remember her? And how does her relationship with Henry differ from her relationship with Luke?
Ooh. Because it's a manipulation too.
Yeah. It's really sad to think that it wasn't true love, you know?
You know what's not fair about that is that almost all love is conditional.
Yeah. True.
Like, as humans and what we've defined as love, it's pretty much all conditional. So
they both love that they feel a need for each other.
But look at your own love. Like, isn't that the truth too?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, true love as like a pure golden thing is like, that sounds great, but
that's fantasy fiction.
Not a real thing, you know?
Well, how would you even define it?
Right, because we're humans and humans are messy and flawed, so there's no perfect, absolute perfect love that never has any strife or any quarrel or any problems or any difficulties. It's, you know, or that you were made for each other.
Right.
You know?
Like,
which is cynical to say, but
on your husband, on our husbands, you know? We're physically attracted to them, mentally attracted to them. They fulfill something. Their reflection of you back, which I think is what we see Henry fill for Addie.
Yeah.
And literally no reflection of him back.
Right.
is what she fulfills for him. Like, the first time my husband said I was pretty, it was like, I don't know that anybody ever really said that to me before. Like, that's meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a reflection of him, of me back from him.
Right.
So I think it's a healthy and true love.
Maybe it's a very human kind of love.
Yeah. Which she hasn't been allowed to have.
Right.
It's very different from Luke because they still have some free will to choose each
True.
other.
I don't know how you couldn't choose the other person or want to be with them 24/7 if you were so alone all the time in both of their different ways that they are. So even if it's not true love, it fulfills a really desperate need for both of them, right? And it makes them happy.
So that sort of frames it as a codependency.
Yeah.
Which it may be.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting.
Let's say Henry didn't have a time limit. Because I was thinking about this. If Henry didn't have a time limit, would they still stick together? Would time change the relationship? I mean, is it romantic? Is it because he has a time limit?
Well,
there's a lot of intention, but
he always had a time limit. She just didn't know the definition of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they would have.
But I'm saying, but let's say in a theoretical, in a different scenario, that Henry did not have a time limit.
So were you saying didn't have a time limit and gets to live a human life, or is immortal like Addie?
Is immortal like Addie?
Because she knows that he's not immortal. Like, she's under the impression that there is, like Anne said, there's a time limit present.
She just thought it was a lifetime.
60 years or whatever.
No. What I'm saying, okay, let's say maybe he's not immortal, but he gets a regular human life. 60 years, I know it's not a big deal. Well, 60 years is still a ways on her. I mean, she's still...
But she commits to that.
But what if I'm just saying, in the long run, would they become like all other human relationships and grow and just have different habits as they right now they're still, I mean, they barely know each other. It's still in the throes of new dating in a sense, right?
But you can't define their relationship in a human terms, because Addie is not even sure if she is a human.
That's true.
That's a point that is made later in the book, is like, he's like, you're not human anymore. And she's like, I am a human. And then she starts to question whether or not she is herself. So I don't think that you can know how their relationship would change. And I don't think that it would in the same way that anybody else's relationship would tend to, with age and with, but people are married for 50 years, like,
well, let's think about this. If they stood alone in their characters outside of the definitions of the things that bring them together, he lusts for life and she lusts for life.
Okay.
Yeah.
He is unsettled and wants to try everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
She wants to experience everything. I think that they'd still be a good
They'd still work.
match
Yeah.
outside their definitions of each other.
I think so too. I think that a
I
person like Henry, who is more, I would, what am I trying to say? Introverts and extroverts is sort of how I would define each of them.
Yeah.
They can find each other and fill that need for each other pretty easily.
Yeah.
So I think that they would match up regardless of if they had this thing. But then it makes me think about Remy. If she had met him and he remembered her in the same way that she meets Luke, because she talks about and remembers Remy all the time and how much she loved him in whatever way she can figure that out. Would that have been the same thing? You know what I mean? Because
Possible. Because I don't believe in the idea that there's
right.
Yeah.
There is no true other half soulmate. In my opinion.
I agree.
There are people who match us best, but there's so many human beings on the planet that statistically there's gonna be more than one
And
of
isn't
them.
it convenient that we mostly find our soulmates near to where we live?
Right.
My soulmate doesn't live in
Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Well, that's why I don't believe in soulmates.
That makes me think of another great book.
Okay.
Which,
because
I'll bring
how
it
sad
later.
would it be that your soulmate, you could go your whole life and never connect with your soulmate if you only had this one opportunity? I love that's not that, I just think that how sad would that be if you missed
that's
out
what she
on that
was
one?
scared
Yeah.
of. She knew she wasn't getting that.
Yeah.
in her first life path choice that brought her to this one. She knew she was not getting that. She was getting no choice. This was not her true match. It's the idea of marriage as a business arrangement,
Yeah.
Part of this reminded me a little bit also of 50 First Dates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially her time with Remy, because she was always trying to, okay, well, I'm going to do something different next time. And maybe. But
Yeah. Okay. A secret kept, a record made, the first mark she left upon the world, long before she knew the truth that ideas are so much wilder than memories, that they long and look for ways of taking root. Addie laments not being able to leave a record or make a mark on the world. How does she find ways of working around this? She can't write her own name. She can't draw a picture. She can't leave a footprint. She can't,
She can't rebuild a house.
No.
Well, she has turned it to good use.
Mm-hmm.
Inspiring beauty and just relentless stick-with-itness until her idea takes hold.
Mm-hmm.
And becomes well-formed. I love Toby's song about her because it's so close.
Mm-hmm.
It's so close to being
To
her
telling her
truth.
story. Yeah, that's true.
I felt like because she was able to leave even the barest impression. To me, all these over time, it's like you don't necessarily see the water wearing away at the rock to create a fissure or a shape. And I feel like her influence, she wasn't entirely invisible because she could, over time, make an impression over and over again enough to be someone's muse.
Yeah.
An unspoken muse.
And so much so that she left her mark in all of these different artworks and forms in a way that B was able to follow that path without even knowing her, to find her in all this art and to know, like, hey, I think this might be the same person in all of these pieces of artwork, that she was able to insert herself so many times that she was so very close to being remembered without any, without Henry writing and publishing his book about her, right? I thought that was pretty cool.
I love Beatrice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she's just this special little Easter egg of a character.
Mm-hmm.
You remind me of an art period.
Yeah.
Every time.
You
Every
just
time.
sparkle.
I do know
You're
people
familiar.
like that, though, that, like, every time you see them or whatever, like, you hear the same story or they say the same things to you. And, like, I can imagine that Addie would be so tired. Just so tired. Be like, I know. Or you'd have to come up with it first. You'd be like, hey, what time period of art do I remind you of? She's like, oh my god, I was just thinking the same thing.
Get out of my head.
Get out of my head, yeah. I'm gonna skip a question so that we can go into which character was your favorite.
Beatrice.
Yeah.
Yeah. B.
Okay, now I'm gonna go back.
Okay.
Time is discussed quite a bit in this story. In the infinite amount of time Addie and Luke have, the brief amount of time that Addie has with any particular person, and the short amount of time Henry thinks he has to live. What does it make you think about the amount of time in your own life, and what do you do with it?
Forget about it. I'm not even going to participate in this question.
I know, it's so hard when you think about, like, what would I do if I was in this situation or whatever? And especially for Henry, who has, like, 1 year to live, I'm like, why are you wasting your time in the bookstore every day? But I don't know, you know?
And that's a good question. Like, we all have a limited amount of time. We don't know what it is.
Right. And if I could see where my life ended, I'd be like, why was I spending so much time doing this one thing and not this other thing, you know? But you don't know.
Mm-mm.
But he does know. Yeah.
And the, like, do you want to be remembered for something, or do you just want to live a quiet, contented life?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not leave a mark. Like,
Yes, that thing. That's me.
are you going to make a mark, or are you not? The time's going by.
Trying to leave a mark takes a lot of energy, and I just don't know if I've ever had the energy to do that.
I don't know if it does. I think everybody leaves their mark in their own way.
Well, that's Addie's influence on each of these artists.
Right.
If she leaves an internal mark through time,
Spent in one
even though
evening or whatever.
she can't leave her own
executed
mark. My daughter had a choir performance last night, and they close this performance every year. I guess it's tradition to sing the song from Rent, Seasons of Love, that starts with the 525,600 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, that is a year.
Yeah.
And if that's all you had, and then to think, like, the writer of that song, he died soon after suddenly, like, he didn't know the time he had, and he left this mark that
That's true.
carries on.
Yeah, I guess you never
Is
know.
it possible to leave a mark but not be aware of it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So NPR does that Unsung Heroes story, my Unsung Hero story project. And, like, one that popped up in my feed yesterday was a woman who was cornered by two men on a college campus, and a guy driving by stopped and talked to the men and gave her a chance to run away.
Mm-hmm.
She has no idea who that person is.
Yeah.
But he saved her life that night.
Yeah.
For whatever
I
outcome was coming.
I also think in the sense of, like, the mark that you leave on other people and the influence that you have in other people's lives that you may or may not be aware of. Like, I think about my grandpa and how I think he probably would have said that he lived a simple life, that he never really intended to make a mark on, you know, people's lives or whatever. But I remember at his funeral, all of these, like, former Boy Scouts that came forward to say all of the things that Mr. Mahan taught him, or, like, all of the ways that he made a difference for them. And I don't think my grandpa was aware of any of those things,
Yeah.
you know? But all of these people that had a thing to say that was like, he did this really important thing for me or whatever.
Mhm.
So I think it's totally possible to be completely unaware of the fact that you have touched other people's lives, you know?
Yeah. That saying of people may not remember you, but they're going to remember how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, my last question says, what do you think will happen with Addie and Luke? Will she give in to him? Will she defeat him? Will they stay together forever?
Addie will definitely win.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
That
She's
that
nothing
I have
if
no
not
doubt.
tenacious, you know?
Yeah, she's already proven her grit for 300 years.
Yeah, she could go forever. She could go for thousands of years.
Yeah,
And
if she
he's-
hasn't given up in 300, he's lost.
Yeah, and well, I don't know. He's eternal, so
True.
300 years.
I mean,
is
but
a
they
drop.
all are. I mean, they both
Right?
are.
But he is not getting what he expected out of her 300 times over.
True.
Because he said that he expected her to not last the year.
Mm-hmm.
He figured that first anniversary, he's going to reap her soul and be done.
She's like, I'm done. I want out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes to show that, like, she has, like, the whole point of the ending is she has learned a lot about him. She knows him better than anybody else. Like, we don't know all of his other deals and markings and things like that, but we are led to believe that she is the one that is, like, the stickiest, you know? She knows him the best. And I don't know if that's true or if that's just what he tells her, but...
That too.
Yeah.
Because he's a liar.
Well, but
In a
actions
sense.
speak louder than words, right?
True.
Yeah. He keeps at her and keeps at her in ways that are like she's seen him with his intended victims of
True.
soul victims.
Reaping?
Yeah. And so he looks different with them
True.
than he does with her in his manner with
Yeah.
them, I would say. Because of course I was thinking when he came for Beethoven, what did he look like to Beethoven?
Yeah.
Mm.
You know?
Mhm.
Because I can't imagine that he would appear as Luke to
No.
anyone else.
Well,
But
no.
you're sort of led to believe that he looks like Luke to Henry, too.
Yeah. Because Henry looks like Luke.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that part. I know that I thought Luke looks like her dream person that she drew in a journal.
So does
But-
Henry.
And Henry does,
But
too.
Henry does too.
But
It's
not in the
very
same way.
subtle. Yeah, it's very subtle. She just says something like,
has
she
to type.
says, there's something about the shape of the mouth. Or
And
something.
his dark curls are different, but they're still...
Yeah, and
Yeah.
his eyes are not quite the same green. They're more...
They're
something-
gray-green or something, yeah.
But what are the odds that she would just happen to go in and steal a book from a bookstore?
I think the odds are 1, because Luke was orchestrating it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. I forgot he
Yeah.
was orchestrating it.
Because otherwise, yeah, the it's billions, right? There's billions of people in the world, so the odds are crazy. But
Mhm.
that was one thing that when I was reading the book, I was like, I was in that same mindset. I'm like, well, isn't it convenient that you two found each other?
Mhm.
But then once I realized what was going on, I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, I see. So I guess that leads me to a question: is like, how soon did you see it coming that Henry was also had also made a deal with Luke? Because there's something about him, and you're like, what's going on with that guy?
Oh, as soon as he recognized her, I knew something. As soon as he not recognized her, as soon as he remembered her, I thought something's up.
Yeah, but when did you know that he had his own deal? Because I was under the impression that, like, well, maybe Luke put him there to be different. Maybe he's not real. Maybe he's a version of Luke or something like
No,
that.
I thought right
Mm.
away he was someone who made a deal with the devil right away. The fact because all these centuries go by and not one person remembers her, but he remembers her.
Yeah.
So I thought then he had his own secret.
Well, I recognize there was a secret at that point. But I will say that I had to be told what his
I
deal
don't
was.
think until she starts noticing how he's different. Like, they go to the food truck thing, and she's like, why was that lady crying when she was talking to you? And he's like, oh, whatever reason. Or he has, like, that panic attack in the movie theater, and he talks all the time about how things move so fast. It's like, don't you think, like, it was when those sort of hints started dropping that I was like, oh, I bet he has a deal going on. I don't know what it is, but something he's got some kind of deal, you know? Okay, that is the end of my questions for this book. So I'm glad you guys both liked it. I loved it. Thank you to Timbre Books for recommending it as one of their like staff favorites from whenever it was released, because I was like, that seems like a book I want to read.
It's a great book. I hate hearing people be like, oh, that book's overhyped. It's not.
Some
Perfect.
things are hyped. Some things are overhyped, but some things are justified in the amount of attention that they get, you know? And I thought this was really good.
I agree. Yeah. Yep. And I recommend that you guys read more of her books.
Yeah,
It's
I would
very
like
good.
to.
Yeah.
So, anybody else read anything good this month? I didn't.
Karen's got a big stack there.
I got a stack, plus I have audiobooks too. This was this was a very productive month since our last time, and that's usually means because I've done a lot of like audible reading. I do have some regular books too though. So I started Don't Fear the Reaper before, and I finished it, and it was really good.
Which is the second book.
The second book from the something like Indian, not Indian, like there's it now has a
It's
series
on the back
name.
of the book.
We read the first one.
The first one.
My Heart is a Chainsaw?
Yes,
There you
My
go.
Heart is there. It is.
So this is the sequel.
Oh, the Indian Lake Trilogy book 1 was My Heart is a Chainsaw. This is book 2. It's possible there might be a third book. I don't know. But he's got more. Yeah, this is definitely good. I've got a book I just started by Inedi Okafor.
Oops, sorry.
Called, I've been wanting to read it for quite a while, and then I noticed it besides book 2, book 3 in the series came out. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna grab it. So it's Akata Witch. And it's a fantasy epic, but it's kind of set in modern times. There's like the people that live in this world, but there's also another realm that they can cross in and out of sometimes. It's this character that lives in Nigeria, but she was born in New York, so she's and her features are West African, but she's albino. And she's part of a quartet of magic students studying the visible and invisible. So I just started that like literally yesterday. That was really good. I have a couple of non-fiction type books. This is I started doing exercise every night. Their time frames do not match reality. It takes me what's supposed to take 15 minutes really does take way longer. But I got one of those habit nest journals, and this one's on stretching, and it's a little bit, and they've got pictures, and I do that. And I had one more. It's the Tunisian Crochet Stitch Dictionary. It's different from if you only got one book and you wanted to learn, that would be the Tunisian Crochet beginners, the one by Tony Lipsy. That would be the one to get. But the next step, if you want to do more and have swatches and learn more stitches, this one by Anna Nikki Pirowitz, I think that's how you say her name, is really good. It's 150 essential stitches with actual size swatches, charts, and step-by-step photos. I like it because it's got color photos. It reminds me in a way of Wendy Bernard's books, where you have illustrations, you've got charts, it's really well done, and I'm using it to design a poncho right now.
Nice. So. Anne, anything?
Lots of audiobooks also. I'm reading more Louise Penny. I'm up to the 7th book, I think, so I've got 10 more to go. I did read To Kill a Mockingbird, which is a book my son just finished in freshman English. It hits different as an adult.
Yeah.
But it's good. Still good. Just different. Yeah.
Cool.
That's what I finished.
All right. Well, drum roll. Anne, what are we going to read next month?
Okay.
What's our next book pick?
Our next book pick is The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichec.
Okay.
It is
The Witch's Heart.
It's published in 2021. There is a follow-up book if you guys enjoy it. When a banished witch falls in love with the legendary trickster Loki, she risks the wrath of the gods in this moving, subversive debut novel that reimagines Norse mythology.
Okay.
Angerboda There's a great website. So summary, what is it?
Super
Supersummary.com
Summary.
is cool.
Mhm.
Howtopronounce.com.
Yes.
Life-changing.
That is also a good website.
So I practiced that one. Angra story. Of course, I listened to the audio sample too. They never said her name in the audio
That's the
sample.
author?
No, that's
Oh.
there's more summary.
Oh, God. Sorry.
Her story begins where most witches' tales ends, with a burning. A punishment from Odin for refusing to provide him with the knowledge of the future. The fire leaves Angra injured and powerless, and she flees into the farthest reaches of a remote forest. She is found by a man who reveals himself to be Loki, and her initial distrust of him transforms into a deep and abiding love. Their union produces 3 unusual children, each with a secret destiny, who Angra is keen to raise at the edge of the world, safely hidden from Odin's all-seeing eye. But as Angra slowly recovers her prophetic powers, she learns that her blissful life and possibly all existence is in danger. With help from the fierce huntress Kaity, with whom she shares a growing bond, Angra must choose whether she accepts the fate she has foreseen for her beloved family or rise to remake their future. From the most ancient tales, this novel forges a story of love, loss, and hope for the modern age. I don't go by reviews very much.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I check the star rating. But a lot of time I just organically pick up a book that looks good to me.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't have time to go to the bookstore this month. So everybody shed a tear. I couldn't go to the bookstore.
Oh. They're moving.
I know, just walking up the street.
Yep.
So this has 0% or 1% 1-star reviews out of
okay.
30,000 reviews.
Cool.
Wow.
And it's sort of fun to read the 1-star reviews on books.
Yeah, it is.
The first path I went down was it was a list of books that have summer in the title, and one actually sounded pretty good. Now I can't remember the title of it. But the 1-star review was like, you would have to be a left-wing virtue signaler to love this book.
Great, I'll love it.
I'm in. And then the next review was like, I really wish the last 3 years hadn't happened, so the last thing I want to do is read a book about vaccines and masks. And
Okay.
I'm like, oh, this is getting better.
Oh my gosh.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I love looking up the reviews. I'll maybe look at the star rating before I choose a book.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, usually I'm with you. I'm like, this looks good. I want to read it.
Yeah.
But I like looking at the reviews afterwards, and I like to see generally all the 5-star reviews are this is great, and then I like to look at the 3 stars to be
exactly.
I loved it, but here's a thing that I didn't like, and then the 1 stars are just so much fun to read. Because it's not like a 1-star review of a Yelp restaurant. I'm like, no. I'm not going there, or ew, that's gross, or that doesn't affect me because I liked this book and I want to read it. That's just your opinion, man. It's not like a yeah, it's funny.
But I think 3-star reviews are a good place to judge a book because you're getting pretty balanced reviews from somebody who gave it 3 stars and actually wrote something.
Yes, that is also helpful. Yeah, because 5-star reviews are not helpful. You're like, I loved it. You're like, okay, great. I'm glad you loved it.
What?
Okay, well, we will see you guys next month for that. Make sure you check out our Patreon if you want more from us. That's patreon.com/stringsunraveled, I think. There's a link to it in the description, so you can click on that. And we'll see you in a couple weeks for our regular podcast episode as well. So, happy reading, happy stitching, happy whatever you're doing, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Strings Unraveled is a production of Strings and Things Studio, with Anne Leckervin-Cazzoli, Kaity Von Rader-Fraker, and Karin Mometh. Recorded and edited by Kaity Von Rader-Fraker. Find us online at stringsandthingsstudio.com or on Facebook or Instagram at Strings and Things Studio. You can email us at stringsandthingsinfo@gmail.com.